Welcome to the third edition of a series of fireside chats that really look to have colleagues who have walked the walk down various paths to making impact, share their knowledge with us, right, and share their experience in the path that they have taken. I would like just very quickly to begin with an acknowledgement of country, right? I would like to pay my respects to the Bidjigal people whose land we're meeting on today, and extend that to, of course, elders past and present and all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people here with us today. All right, so without further ado, our guest today is Vijay. And I have to say that I just met Vijay once prior to this meeting, and it was at a Spinout Club event. And when I met Vijay for the first time, I'm very convinced that he's a person who lives two lives. Because not only is he a full professor in the School of Electrical Engineering and Telecommunications, but he's also full-on a co-founder and CEO of a spinout. And that spinout is called Canopus, right? Which, just a fun fact, Canopus is one of the brightest stars in the sky. And its business is really on putting out a product that enables operators and enterprises to seamlessly monitor application behavior, user experience, and cyber threats in real time. So this is currently deployed across a number of networks across the Asia Pacific, and it currently monitors more than 2 million fixed line and mobile subscribers as of this moment. Right? And maybe you have more updated statistics for us at this point, but I'm very sure that the person that you see here is just one half. I'm very sure that Vijay has a twin brother doing the spin-out stuff on the side, right? But without further ado, thank you, Vijay, for joining us. And I thought that I might just start off with the obvious. We want to know about your story. So can you share the story of how your spin-out was founded and the role your academic research actually played in its founding?
Well, firstly, thank you very much for having me here. It's a real pleasure. And I engage a lot with people in engineering. So for me to come out here and talk to people to do with business, I think this is something we should do a lot more often. And so I'll speak through some of my experiences, but to give a bit of background on myself, after my studies undergraduate in India, I moved to the US, got my PhD at UCLA in Los Angeles. And during my PhD, I was actually funded on a fellowship from Bell Labs. So I ended up spending a lot of time in Bell Labs and seeing how the commercial world works there, which was a very good experience, except I needed to keep switching coasts. East Coast, West Coast was a bit of a nightmare to deal with, but nevertheless, great experience. And then I jumped into a startup in Silicon Valley. And I kind of said, this was going back 2000. It was, the peak of the tech boom, so to speak. And I said, I got to find a very young company where I can go and make a mark. So I found a company that had just started literally 3 months back, just 3 people. So I was the 4th person in the company. But the founder had a successful exit before. So he already had a pre-committed Series A of $15 million US. So that sounds pretty good. Got in, and really it was a great formative learning experience, seeing how a product is built, not just built, it's actually conceived, because at that point we were not even clear what the product was. So, engaging in the brainstorming as a very, very small team, literally, 4 people, 5 people sitting in a room thinking, what is it we really should be building? And then seeing that journey, the company grew to about 200 people, went on to raise a Series B, which is 50 million US. So total funding raised was about 65 million. We had a great party, but then the tech wreck hit. And that's when things started going south somewhere in 2001, late 2001, early 2002. And finally, by the end of 2002, we kind of did a fire sale of the company, and I moved on. I said, I'm burnt out, and I moved to Australia. So moved to Australia, spent a couple of years at the CSIRO, then joined UNSW as a young academic. Always had this itch that I got to do something startup, some innovative, something. But I had to go through the rungs of the ladder and waited patiently till I got my promotion to full professor in 2017, and 2018 incorporated the company. But a lot of good things happened in the interim, because not only did we do a lot of good research, but I managed to maintain a lot of industry connections, got funding from Google 3 times, managed to build a profile with them, then got funding from Cisco and HP and a whole bunch of local operators, Optus, Telstra, and BN. And that really led to us building a kind of an MVP with some funding from industry. And we deployed it on a trial basis, and some operators locally, they seemed to like it. We said, we got something here we really should incorporate. And that's when we incorporated. We went on to raise a seed round, about 2.5 million Australian. And then we got a couple of good wins. And then on the back of that, we raised a Series A of, the total was about 18.5 million, give or take. So that's kind of my journey. I don't know if in the process of recounting my journey, I forgot if there was a specific question or was just giving the journey.
No. We wanted to know the journey, because the follow-up question is, as an academic and an engineering professor, what were some of the most challenging aspects of this journey? And especially moving from a lab-based innovation into a commercial venture?
It's a good question, and it's something that's hopefully going to be something this audience will appreciate. It's really the business side. The technology, as for many people in engineering, they really understand it. They're very comfortable in it. You could ask me questions for hours and I'd be very comfortable answering them, or at least not me, somebody in my team can answer them well. I would say the biggest challenges have been on the business side, really understanding product market fit. I'm very excited about our technology. I think it's the best thing that's been invented ever. But for market to appreciate it, to find the right fit, that it solves a business problem and translates to a business value, and they're willing to pay money to buy the product, to use it, to license it, or whatever it is. That has been, I think I'd say eye-opening, in the sense that you go in with initially just totally drinking your Kool-Aid and saying, this is so great, people are going to be lining up to buy this. And it doesn't necessarily play out that way. You start understanding the complexities on what's on the other person's mind. First question is, who the hell are you, right? And then I have a mentor who's a fairly senior guy, he used to be at Cisco, and he told me that when you're at Cisco, you go into a meeting, you spend 2 minutes saying who you are, and then you talk about the product. When you're a very young company, you spend 80% of the meeting explaining who you are. And so because the trust doesn't exist, the brand doesn't exist, and you haven't worked out the ecosystem, because our company is a B2B business, so we sell into businesses. The product needs to fit into the whole set of tools they have, the workflows they have, the way the people use the products that they already have, and how they can consume a new product, how it fits into the ecosystem. Are they motivated to learn yet another dashboard or yet another system? Also, these customers make long-term investments. At least we sell to a lot of telecom operators and more recently into enterprises. And their planning horizon is 3 to 7 years. So when they buy a product, minimum 3 years, often 5 years, sometimes they're looking beyond 5 years as well. So they want to be sure that you exist in 3 years or 5 years. And so all these factors, which as a technologist or an engineer, you really don't think about, it doesn't even cross your mind in the beginning. These were all, I would say, rude awakenings when you go to the market, put the product out there, then you realize you need a team that can actually take all those questions. You need credible people, you need to build a brand, you need to have reference customers, all these kind of things, which I think we were pretty naive about, as many people are, engineering founders, especially early in the company.
So you talked about some of the commercial ingredients that are necessary for the success of a startup or spin-out. But underpinning these commercial ingredients, what sort of business skills or knowledge did you find to be the most critical for the spin-out, especially in the startup stage?
I wish we had a business person from day one, which we didn't, right? As I said, I think product market fit. I mean, sounds like a very simple 3-word term, but getting that product market fit is extremely crucial to any company. And that requires knowing the business problems. That requires us or any entity to know. And I'm more talking about a B2B. A B2C could be quite different. And I don't have much experience in B2C, but in B2B, making sure that the product you have is fitting into a need, they can create a budget for it and justify it internally, because business cases have to be built. Even the lack of exposure of how to build a business case, I think was a skill that was lacking in the company for definitely for the initial periods of the company. So that I would say is a skill, understanding the business, understanding where the product fits in, understanding how they would internally justify the cost spent on the product, but not just the product, the support of the product, the training of the product, the way it's used and integrated into the workflows. And ultimately, as somebody told me, there's only 3 reasons a company buys a product. They either save money, make money, or stay out of jail, right? So we are not a stay out of jail kind of product. I think we have to articulate the value in terms of save money or make money. And believe me, we flip-flop many times. We started with saying, oh, it's going to generate new revenue for you. But we know that telecoms often struggle to generate new lines of business, right? They sell pipes, and they're pretty dumb pipes. They've tried bundling content. They've tried doing other things, not always very successful. So when you go in with that story, you need to have a very credible way and a champion who's willing to stick their neck out and say, yes, I will take this, understand usage by customers and create personalized bundles or whatever the value prop is. And then we've kind of flipped to saying, well, that's a bit hard. Maybe we should focus on the save money. So especially with AI coming in and saying you can automate a lot of these workflows. And then you got to be conscious that the person in the company is saying, hey, am I buying a tool that's going to put me out of a job or not, or reduce my team size? And that's something we also learned in the field, where if they buy a product that's got all this fancy AI and is claiming it can do all these things and you need lesser headcount, this guy is, how is he going to justify it to his boss saying, oh, if you buy this, you can give me a smaller budget next year? May not really be what he really wants to be seen as within the company, because a lot of people believe their importance is how big their budget is in the company, better or for worse. So understanding all these aspects and a bit of soft skills around it, understanding the psychology of the organization, the individual who's championing it, and being able to construct a case that is compelling, because also for a set of stakeholders, no longer is an organization an individual making a decision. You need an individual to champion it, stick their neck out, and build a business case and defend it. But ultimately, they'll have around the table maybe half a dozen people who have to collectively agree to that and sign off on the budget. So all those intricacies, I think, are skills that often engineers lack by themselves, and something that I really think we should be working together more or talking more.
Fantastic. Thank you, Vijay. And you do know that I have an ulterior motive for inviting you. So I'm going to have to ask the next question. So were there moments where you felt business academics could have supported your journey? For example, in areas like market analysis, funding strategy, business case development, partnership development, is there a role for business academics to play?
Well, the reason I'm here is because I actually want to work more with business. So it's not just you pulling me, I'm actually pushing myself in here. The answer is an absolute and resounding yes. I think even in the early days of the company, if I reflect on some of the early conversations we had with customers, we did not even know the language they were using. So in the absence of even knowing the basic terms, we didn't look very smart, honestly. I mean, technically, yes, we could blow the socks off anyone. In fact, in the early days of our product, the engineers who trialed and tested it absolutely loved it, to the point they were WhatsApping me saying, this is lovely. How about this feature? Can you do this? But, from a business perspective, as my investors would say, they're just kicking the tires, right? So, and great, the product is lovely. But getting the decision makers, the stakeholders to really understand the value of the product, to stick their neck out and say, yes, we'll buy this product from a small and unknown company, which may or may not exist in 2-3 years. I'm going to put my neck on the line. That requires us to, at the very least, have knowledge of the business terms and processes that they use internally. But I think there's a lot more value that comes in from the business side, which is also having a view towards what is the long-term strategy, because that's what you sell to your investors, is a long-term vision. But then you need to have an intermediate and a short-term strategy to get some wins. Because if you keep on selling the vision, but 2 years down the track, you don't have a single win, you don't have a single revenues, then it becomes a concern whether the vision is viable at all. So I think at every stage of this journey, you need people who have ideally seen businesses, seen a variety of businesses, have that experience, where they have seen what are some of the business mistakes that are made. To what extent do you read the market and align yourself with it? Where are the investments and money going? Even basic things. Till we had a finance person hired into the company, we were not really reading the balance sheets of these companies we were talking to, reading their annual reports, trying to understand where are their investments going, what is their CEO saying in the annual report, or where they're going to be heading next. so that we align our language and the direction of the company in the same way, so it's easier to get that budget win. So short answer, absolutely. I think every stage, we just wish and I hope that all young companies, especially those that are very engineering heavy and coming out of engineering, do take that, collaborate with the business people right from day zero.
Fantastic. So Vijay, if I'm to pass you a blank slip of paper, and I ask you to paint me a picture of what the ideal collaboration between an engineering academic and a business academic look like, right? What would you say?
First and foremost, I think you should start from day one or day zero, whatever you want to call it, at the concept and idea stage. Well, I've noticed, at least in engineering, among a lot of technically very strong people, they kind of often feel that they are the ones bringing in most of the value, and the business side is, it's just a lot of talk, right? And I hear that often, and even within my engineering team in the company. The reality is you need that talk. You need that talk. And I don't want to sound like, I think a lot of engineers are a bit dismissive of the business side. They somehow think it'll fall magically in place because the product is just so great that, hey, everybody's lining up. You don't need to worry about it. The cash register is going to be ringing kind of thing, but it doesn't happen. So I would say in my ideal world, I think there should be a co-founder who's fairly savvy on the business side. And I think a lot of sophisticated investors either look for it in the founding team, or if the founding team doesn't have the skill, they try to put somebody in from the very beginning, not something that you'll work out eventually, because every month, your kitty is depleting because investors generally put in a small amount in the beginning, and every month you're paying payroll and you have expenses. You don't want to be going without a clear kind of business direction in mind. So I would say that is, I would definitely like to see the founding team contain a business person, either part of the team because they already know each other, or brought in if needed. And the other thing I would point out is that as part of the founding team, there needs to be a lot of trust, which is something that I would like to see happen, over a period of time. Which is why I think interacting, we are all in the same university. I think more interaction between engineering and the other faculties, the business side included, is needed. So that trust is already there. When you're met with a person 3, 4, 5, 8 times, you tend to feel more comfortable with them. And when you're starting a company, it's kind of like a marriage, right? It's you've got to be in there and you've got to tough it out. There'll be good times and bad times and so on. So the more trust you can build from the beginning. And also there's a bit of education on both sides. Probably, I would say, maybe I'm coming from engineering, I'm biased. There's more education needed on the engineering side on the value of business, which needs to be built over time as well. Because if you don't get that right, you could be having the most fantastic product, but it's just not selling.
I think this collaboration is contingent on a number of things. As you alluded to, having engineering recognize the value of business, but also on the business end, I suppose there's also the need for the motivation to do it, and also the confidence that we have something valuable to contribute. So just on that, right, from your perspective, what do you think would motivate or incentivize more business academics to get involved in spin-outs, startups, alongside technical founders?
Look, probably this audience is better positioned to say what will motivate them to engage more with engineering. But look, the reality is that there's a lot of money in technology, incredible amount of money, right? If you're doing something AI and there's investors that are tripping over each other, if they think you have a credible story in that space, needless to say, if you look at the last 20, 25 years, these tech companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon barely existed, and now they are the largest companies in the world. Most of the growth in the S&P and so on is coming from the tech companies. So the opportunity is huge in technology, and that's something our engineering faculty here and technologists in general, who understand the depths of the technology and are pretty confident they can pull together a product that's super innovative and so on. We have capability here. I would speculate that the motivation from the business side would be being on it, because this could be the next thing that becomes a 100 million, billion, and beyond dollar company. And the other thing I'm also noticing, and maybe I'm digressing a little bit, but the other trend I'm seeing is that with AI, teams are starting to get smaller and smaller. In fact, I don't know if it's a joke or it's serious. The next thing people are looking out for is which is going to be the one-person unicorn, which means a one-person company that's going to be worth $1 billion, right? And people are actually taking this challenge seriously. I have friends in the Valley who say, yeah, it'll be me, and I'll make $1 billion company out of it.
Really quite a few.
Are there one-person unicorns, really? Okay. Oh, well, see, my information is 2 weeks old and the world's already moved on. The world is moving fast. AI is, at the moment, the absolute hot topic globally. Investments in it are obscene, 5 trillion or thereabouts. There's an opportunity. So I would think if the technology, people have the chops to actually build something new and innovative, but they don't know how to capture this market that is massive and growing at a amazing CAGR, right? Compound annual growth rate. I think there should be motivation from the business faculty to say, let's team up and get some equity as a founder or whatever it is, and see if this could be something that could either, be a long-term $1 billion plus company, or get an exit in the short term because you're at the right place, doing the right thing, making the right noises. And there are lots of legacy companies out there that are totally lost on AI. They just don't know what to do. They're just saying, oh, we need to put some AI in our slides. Our board is, I've actually been approached by companies saying, we need more AI because my board's telling me we're sitting on $100 million of cash, but we are not growing fast enough. They all say, you should be looking at AI. That will make you grow. You guys do AI. Can you help us a bit, kind of thing? So there is a lot of opportunity out there. And as everyone knows, the moment you get one win, even if it's a small exit, few tens of million or whatever it is, you're hot property, right? Everybody wants to invest in you and see you build the next company. So I think opportunities are galore. I'd say 2 things as early as you can, because again, not every company is going to succeed. It might take a few failures before you get a win, but even a small win is quite a significant win, especially in Australia, where we are hungry for wins here. And investors are looking for credible people who have done startups before, who have taken them to an exit of any sort, because, hey, that means there's more confidence they can do the next exit, which will be bigger. So there are so many opportunities, and the timing with AI is so good. I'd say this is a very good time to jump in.
And perhaps what are some barriers or misconceptions that you know of that, or you have heard that prevent business academics from playing a more central role in the spin-out process?
Again, maybe this audience might know more about the barriers from the business side, but I would speculate that firstly, you need to team up with. I shouldn't say need to, but there is an opportunity to team up with the technology engineers. First of all, I suppose you'd need that relationships. You'd need to be engaging, with them in various forums, such as the ones that are being organized at UNSW, which I think is doing a fantastic job. That's why we met, in fact, at that event. And hadn't we met, this might not have happened, right? So more time, face-to-face or otherwise, across faculties, to build that relationship and trust, which takes time, because otherwise you really don't even know what's happening in engineering in terms of what are the ideas people have and are they looking to spin out or not. And believe me, in engineering, I've seen a lot of hesitation that academics or even students who believe they've come up with something very interesting, either they haven't thought about startups or they say, oh, that's too hard, or, whatever barriers. The more they talk, both with people who have done it before, but also across faculties, and how the business could be structured, it'll give them more confidence. And there are just so many little things that need to be done to get it to a success. Let me take one example, just off the top of my head, is pricing. You built a product, how do you price it? It's such a non-trivial exercise. And after years, I don't think we still got it right. Because, and I'm probably telling you something you all know very well, but engineering staff and students or founders don't really always know it, is You could start with a cost plus model, right? This is a cost and I'll add a little bit and make some money. But you could go with a value-based model. But there are so many different ways to think about it. But you have to understand the competitive landscape. You can't price it, so your competitor undercuts you. But if you have no competition, it's a completely new product, you should set it extremely high, right? So all these kind of things, you make lots of mistakes. And, for a company to be successful, I think there's only a certain quota of mistakes you can make. You can make mistakes. Nobody's going to do absolutely everything perfectly. And I think that's where the collaboration and the conversation would really help. So getting back to your core question, from a business side, I would say that more interaction to just find out what is happening, get to know the people who might be the next founders, getting to know what kind of space they work in. Sometimes just asking them a pointed question, what's the TAM of that? And you might astound them. They never thought about it. These kind of things might say, oh, this guy seems to know more about the market than I do. Maybe I'll chat with him and we can do something together. So I think more interaction is needed. There's a lot of great ideas in this university, a lot of very strong faculties. I just think we need to be interacting more. And with that will come opportunities. You can put your networks together. Even things like for a technical founder, yes, they can build a technical product, but raising money, how do you get your debt? And speaking to investors, that's almost like a full-time job. One person can't do it, and they may not even have the right skills or the right language. So I think from business, there's so many skills that could be super vital, all the way from raising the money, working with investors and boards, understanding and scoping the market, coming up with a vision, statements, a long and medium-term strategy, pricing. There's just so many things.
Mm. And to wrap up, I've always had this belief, and I would like you to hear your views on it, that for every market need that is out there, there are often many different products, many different ways of addressing the same need, and often it's not the most technically sophisticated solution that wins, isn't it? It's usually a solution that is, good enough, superior in some sense, but most importantly, it's probably promoted, sold well to achieve commercial viability. Would you say that that's very much the case?
Oh, I think we could talk for hours about that. What makes success? You're absolutely right. Just having the best technology is by no means guaranteed to give you success. It could be aspects like how much marketing and promotion you do, as you say, and I don't want to name names, but I've definitely seen companies that spend a lot on marketing and branding, and they have very aggressive salespeople who get the deal. So there is marketing and branding. But in B2B, I'd say trust is a very important thing, very different from B2C. B2C, you can advertise at the back of the bus and social media and all that, and it seems to work. Like you come up with a new orange juice called Gyodi. What's new about orange juice? Nothing in the world, right? But you just market the hell out of it and you get consumers to buy it. You can build a business, right? But for B2B, it's very different. It's based on brand and trust. So one thing I've learned is you need salespeople with connections. So salespeople who already have a Rolodex, if I can still use that word, and they can call up 20, 30 people and call in favors and say, guys, I'm with this new company. We need a few sales. I need you to cut a check. Product will do its stuff. I got some super smart academics behind me. I can guarantee it works well. Don't worry about the details. I'll make you look good. I just got a check. So you need that. In some cases, the time to market could be important depending on your timing. If you're one of the first to get in, and example, Palo Alto Networks is a security company. They got in early, they grabbed the market, their prices are astronomical to the extent that even in UNSW, upgrading our internet connection from 10 gig to 100 gig was cheap. Upgrading the firewall to support that 100 gig was 10 times more expensive than the connection. So, but they can do it because they almost have a monopoly. They got in the market early, they kind of set themselves as a premier provider. And so there are many, many aspects. And even things like pricing come in. Engineers tend to underprice everything. We are so naive, right? We just look at, no, it's okay. Just get the deal. If it's just a few dollars, fine. I'll work weekends, I'll work nights, I'll make it happen. You can't build a business like that, right? Yes, you have to do that sometimes to get key customers and build the referenceability. But nobody likes prices going up. It's okay to start really high and then bring it down because customer feels good, you feel good. But starting with a low number and going high is very hard. So there are just so many things that, as I said, you kind of need to get right, and which determines success, which is far more than just having good technology. And in fact, I would almost say, and I've heard this say that if you've got a good business person and they've raised the money, you can hire engineers, right? So that's almost the contrary view, that if you've got the money and you've got the confidence that you can go to the market and articulate it. The other phrase I've heard often, which I'm liking more and more, is sell first, build later, rather than engineers always build first and sell later. If they first build it, no, I've got to still, it's not perfect yet. Give me another 6 months. It'll work beautifully. Then you take it to market and you find out you solve completely the wrong problem, or the customer has no appetite to pay for it. Isn't it so much better to sell first? Then you know exactly what the customer is willing to cut a check for and then build that. And in B2B, often you have the time to build it because it's not like a consumer product where they put the cash and say, I want it right now. In B2B, often there's a lead time, contracting will take 2-3 months, large telcos, good luck, 6 months, and so on. You can actually, in fact, we have started doing that. We've been building AI agents. We already have a catalog. It's like a menu of a restaurant saying we can build you these 12 agents. They'll pick one and they say, but I want it customized this way, change this ingredient. And like, yeah, sure. Start the procurement process. We are ready to go right now, which is a complete lie because we have not even started it, right? But by the time they go through the procurement process and all that, it's 3 months. You've built it by then. So a lot of these factors are very important.
So it sounds like commercial acumen and expertise is also very much required for a spin-out or startup. Yeah. So thank you, Vijay, for your time. And of course, I don't want to monopolize the mic and the talking stick. I would like to open up the floor for questions. Yes.
Thanks, Vijay. So as a co-founder, you could eat, sleep, breathe, spend all of your time plus more as a co-founder. And your investors probably want you to do that. On the other side, you're a full professor in the engineering faculty, and UNSW wants its pound of flesh as well, and would probably be a little bit unhappy if you didn't do that. So how have you found this challenge of splitting your time between the business and the university, and what's been challenging about it?
It's a good question and a fair question. First and foremost, I'd say that UNSW has been very generous with me in the sense of allowing me to incorporate the company. And this was before we had fully defined procedures in place and so on and so forth. So maybe I was a bit lucky. Also, because what we're doing is a spin out of our research, there's such a close tie between the research work we do in our group and the commercialization that's happening in the company, that it is actually a plus. So yes, I have to manage my conflicts of interest and so on, but it is a plus because I think we've done 8 patents done out of UNSW, but they're all exclusively licensed into the company. And in return, the company is funding the research. We jointly go and leverage the government for CRCP, AA, all these kind of grant schemes. But I think getting down more to the personal level, which is what you're asking, one has to juggle. But I've found that trusting people really helps. So, what we call delegation, but I think of it more as trust. So at UNSW, I've got a postdoc, I've got a bunch of PhD students, definitely getting help from the team as a whole to make sure, we're giving the right guidance to the students. The problem definitions, the fact that we have a commercial entity that's commercializing in market and really hearing what the customers want, makes it a lot easier to channel the research in the right direction. Because a lot of times, and anybody who's done a PhD, at least I did and others do, they spend a lot of time thinking, what is the problem you want to solve, right? You want that, that kind of room for creativity, but having a problem coming from industry because commercial partner is so closely tied here and we get to see all the inside of what the customer is saying is been a plus and made the team very productive. So what we produce is getting into the absolute top-notch conferences and journals. It's getting patented. It's actually getting deployed. So a lot of my PhD students, they do their research, they validate it in the lab, and then they either do an internship or they spend time in the company rolling it into the product. And when they see something that's working in the lab for 20 users is working for 2 million users in the field, they get an absolute kick out of it, right? So, and likewise on the company, of course, I've got support in terms of, the basic functions like finance and operations, but also customer delivery and support, got a tech lead and all that stuff. So leaning on them, learning to trust them. And that's something that, as I said, trust is something that you build over time. And thankfully, I think I've both got support from the university as a whole. And I think UNSW has shown it has strong appetite to commercialize technology, which has been really, really beneficial, at least for me personally, on this, on this journey. But equally, learning to delegate and trust. And again, I'm not saying that's the only way. I have heard of founders who are super obsessive and they get down into the weeds on everything and they become control freaks, right? And I'm sure it can be good in some ways because you get the absolute perfect product, like a Steve Jobs kind of person, or it could backfire because you just pull it in so many directions, you're not able to get anything done, right? So I think finding all that balance is something you customize to your own taste and your own style. And also you've got to be lucky with the people around you, which I think I have been.
Mark. Awesome. Thanks a lot, Vijay, for the presentation, and thanks, Barney, for hosting these because they're really interesting. I mean, my question is, what can universities do more to encourage the collaborations? I personally actively invest frequently in startups and run a fund, but I've never really considered in collaborations. And from my perspective, it's because when the university often presents them, they're like, please do additional work for which you have no equity or pay. And it's like, and many of you will have heard me on that. I'm a broken record at this point. But what can the university do to help encourage those linkages, in your opinion, do you think?
I think there were probably two questions there. One is also around the academics workload in terms of these. Is that what you meant when you said these extra things that need to be done?
Yeah, so I guess often when industry partnerships are presented to academics, it's presented as you could do something that might help your research, never mind whether it's publishable, and you won't get paid. So that's part of it. But also the underlying question is, how can the universities help to facilitate connections between academics who are interested? So I hypothetically am interested. I actively invest in startups, right? But I invest because I get equity. So how can those linkages be facilitated is more my question at a university level.
Yeah, look, I can't claim that I have all the answers here. But firstly, I think UNSW is trying very hard, and at least it's showing the appetite and the interest to do that, which, again, I've heard from some colleagues is not always the case. To encourage collaborations, firstly, within this university, right, across faculties and the likes, events such as these and the one that triggered this whole thing where we actually met and introduced ourselves to each other, those are really helpful because you're not going to get 80% or even 50% or even 20% of academics wanting to do it, right? There'll probably be a smallish number. I don't know the number, maybe it's 5%, 10%. Identifying them, trying to encourage them and understanding each person's situation. Like, as I said, I kind of waited to become a full professor before I started the company because I know I can't fight on multiple fronts. I say fight, I mean it politely, because going through the academic promotion, ladder is not trivial. You got to have a bunch of metrics and stuff. So I think this is where some younger academics I've seen, junior staff who are really hungry and want to start something. They have the energy, but they're worried if it will affect their academic career. I think those are things you need to work one-on-one to understand what their individual kind of thought process is. If the university, first and foremost, I would say the university does provide a safety net in some way, and that is actually pretty important. Otherwise, a person could just quit and start a company, right? But then they're taking the full risk with nothing to fall back on. And companies can literally fold up in a day, right? I have many colleagues who show up in the morning and they're told the company shut down, right? So that kind of stuff. So having that safety net is something that maybe could be articulated more or worked through on an individual basis. Finding those academics who want to collaborate both across faculties and even with industry. I mean, the other way that I see the university has the SSP program or the sabbatical program, which is a way to go and work in industry, really trying to encourage that to be a true engagement with industry, because once you've tasted and seen how it works, you'll either decide this is not for me, I want to stay away from it. Or you may say, hey, there's something going on here and I want to explore that opportunity with that safety net behind me. I think these are some of the things the university could do. So I think in short, again, this is coming to my mind on my feet. There could be other things I'm not thinking of right now, but number one, more internal interaction through events and the likes, which I think UNSW is doing a good job. Number two is a bit of a safety net. And number three, more exposure to industry via sabbaticals, encouraging industry projects, removing the IP barriers as much as possible, all those kind of things. But maybe there are other ideas from others in the room that they want to bring up or mention.
To follow up on that, I think you mentioned a lot that are in the realm of intrinsic motivation. And I've once heard from someone that intrinsically motivated individuals will always be intrinsically motivated no matter what they do. But, beyond that, of course, a lot of us, we have material concerns as well. Some of us have to be extrinsically motivated as well. And there's nothing wrong with that. So on your part, right, how has UNSW supported you extrinsically in terms of what you do? So why is it that you have decided to take on this? Is it the potential? Is it the dissatisfaction of starting your own company? Is it seeing it succeed? Is it a commercial or financial return from investing your energy in this? So what is it that extrinsically motivates you?
Okay, good question. So from my own perspective, I guess I've tasted blood, right? I've been in a startup. I've kind of seen speed at which things can work, and you can actually put something totally innovative out there, and people say, "Wow!" Right? So that itch has remained, and when the time was right, that's why I wanted to incorporate the company, because we do a lot of deep research, we write a lot of papers, but to me, a paper is not the end of it. It's just the beginning. It's an idea, and you validate it in the lab, really taking it out there, making somebody pay for it. So that's probably been my intrinsic kind of motivation. In some ways, I was lucky that UNSW has got that focus. I think from the time I've been here 20 years now, and I've seen that message come VC after VC saying that we want to have an impact in society. We want to make a difference. We want to engage with industry. So I was incredibly lucky that I picked UNSW of all the universities to join. And I'm getting that kind of support. The support I've seen is from all levels of the university, head of school, dean of engineering, all the way up, and also the entrepreneurial side, right? Like Linda, etc. So that safety net bit means financially I don't need to be too worried, I hope. Of course, I have to manage my conflicts and my time. In terms of drivers, the financial driver is always there. Everybody wants to, hey, make $1 million, pay off your mortgage, and kind of have a more relaxed life. At least those pressures are off you. But you can't bank on it, because there is, the reality is there's only a relatively small percentage of startups that actually make it big enough for you to get a good exit out of it, right? But it's really seeing academic work translated. And I'm finding this not just for me. Every single person in my group, the moment the paper goes into a product, their behavior changes. I've had students who start with a master's, I'm going to go to industry. By the end of the master's, no, I want to stay on for the PhD, because here I'm actually seeing the impact. Much more of what I'm doing is translating into a real world product. I can see how people are using it. I can see, hey, they're paying for it. And I would like to see that ecosystem grow in Australia more, having more companies coming out, trying to put products or services or whatever it is in the market, and getting that confidence. I mean, having, I suppose, lived in California in a startup and having lived in Sydney for 20 plus years, I don't think we're short on talent by any means. What I see as the biggest difference is confidence, right? I mean, there, somebody would have some idea or a lunch table and they'll say, oh, I'm going to talk to a VC and see if I can raise a couple of million. I mean, that level of confidence here, it would take somebody 3 years to work up the courage to say, oh, maybe I should go and talk to a VC. So it's just confidence, and we just need to do it more, get more successes, and then you have more mentors you can go and approach, and we need to build that confidence. And And with confidence, more money will come in as well.
Just thank you very much, Vijay, for sharing these insights. I've personally found them really enlightening. Thank you. When you have a wonderful technology like yours, sort of one part to commercialization is company building or a spin out. But I guess there are others too, like licensing or even just selling it to a company. I'm wondering like how you think about those choices and why for you it was a spin out or a company. Yeah.
No, that's a good question, and it's very dependent on what you're actually doing. Firstly, what we started with, we have kind of changed directions here and there as the market has evolved and AI agents have become the big thing and so on. But if your technology is such that you can license it, which means it's very self-contained, very obvious for somebody to see, to take, and possibly use, go for it. If you can get a quick win, get a quick win. Because, there are a lot of, longer the journey, you will encounter more and more obstacles, right? So if you can license it, great. If you can just sell the technology, great. I think we found in our case, our technology was something that plays in a bit of an ecosystem, and we need to find the right pieces have to come together to make our technology shine. And in the beginning, when you just have an idea, you go to in my field, you go to a Cisco or a Nokia. They're not going to just buy the technology. They'll first try to just take the technology if they think there is something really valuable. But before that, they'll even ask you, what's the validation at scale? Why can't I just read your paper and just do it myself? They will, nobody is going to fork up millions just because you say you have a good idea, right? So what proof points do you have that it's really worth that? And building that proof points takes money. So you come back to either you start your company. Otherwise, how do you prove that your technology has a value? It can be tough. But again, it depends on the technology. If you invented a new self-contained gadget that you can show working in a demonstration, great. But our technology is so embedded in the network, it has to work at scale and show you all these kind of things. It just wasn't viable to selling on day one.
I know that there's a lot of people think about the IP obstacles in terms of how that's, who owns it, how that's allocated. And I just wanted to know your thoughts about whether that is a real obstacle or not, or what incentives that, or barriers that might create.
Look, in my mind, and again, this very depends on the field, right? In my mind, IP is not really an issue, right? Firstly, without the people who have done it, a written piece of paper with an IP is meaningless. So you can't decouple the person or the people or the team from the written document, be it a paper or whatever it is, right? The second thing is, I think of IP more as a defensive position rather than an offensive position, which means we have the IP. We don't want somebody to come and say, we have done this before. We'll say, no, we got a patent, it's been assigned to us. But my intention is never to take it and go and fight with others. That's a losing battle. You don't have the team of lawyers. If Cisco or Nokia were to copy what we do, it'd be very hard for us to find it and fight it out, right?
So I sort of mean like universities often will think that they'll have a stake in the IP, and when you have a company, they'll take a stake in the company, and that potentially makes it less attractive for an outside investor.
Yeah, so obviously those numbers have to not be a barrier. So I think I was coming to that in terms of, in my mind, the IP is somewhat overrated. It's more of a show thing when you go and say, look, I've got 6 patents and we're going to start a company. It definitely looks better, right? And having the defensibility is important because it's, as I said, it's defensive. It's not really offensive, right? But yeah, I've heard these discussions about stake the university has, etc. Of course, those numbers have to be good enough for an investor not to bail out and say, look, I think I'm put off by the equity the university has, and So in our particular instance, there is some equity UNSW has. Over our funding rounds, it's now diluted down to something that's not that significant. Yeah, of course, monetary terms, if it became a unicorn, it could be significant, but it's not a number that puts off any investors, and that's important. But in my mind, we have to come to an amicable position quickly. The last thing you want to be doing is spending your time and effort as a founder fighting about IP and stuff. There's so many battles you have to fight. Save your energy for those. And I think from what I understand, now it's been 7 years since I incorporated, but I don't know the situation now, but I believe it's a lot smoother and easier now. And ultimately, the university also knows that just IP sitting on the shelf is useless to everyone. Nobody makes anything out of it. They'd rather see you found something and try your hand at it. And from my own perspective, I've never been hugging equity and IP too much. I'm personally quite okay to take a smaller piece of a bigger pie than see that pie never bake or never grow, right? So I think, let me put it this way, the odds are against us when we start a company. They're so against us that you don't want to be picking your fights on things that are just a waste of time. Pretending you're going to be $1 billion and saying, no, I want this percentage or whatever it is. That's, in my mind, get a quick win. Your first win, it's much safer to go for a small and quick win. Yes, there could be a Zuckerberg starting the next Facebook, but I think the odds are very stacked against it. Just go for a quicker and faster win, and then use that to do your next thing. Of course, assuming that you can actually do that in your field, because I know some companies require 20 years of research before it can even become a product. So
we're coming up at what part of Crystal?
Okay, thank you. So mine is maybe the best for a inspirational, generational kind of. I've heard from top finance professors, they wouldn't want their finance students going into finance, but rather to be entrepreneurs. And I think a lot of that comes from that general sense of we want to be able to add back and build something. And the way we can do that and to contribute that way is to actually be in this type of world where you're, adding through potentially a startup or something. But the reality is that I wonder what we contribute as the actual knowledge in terms of what we're teaching, to be able to say what will then translate into real practical advice. And I'll be honest, what could they learn from me that they can't already look at ChatGPT? So you kind of got a lot of that insight. If you were to try to say, it was really hard for me to be able to do that language at the beginning and make us not sound like we didn't actually know, but over time, clearly you learned it. Right. So there's just a little bit of, what can the skill case that we can actually be giving now, I think it would be really helpful.
Look, it's a good question. And yes, now there is a general belief that, hey, ChatGPT can do everything, right? Hence the 1% unicorn, as I was saying. Look, yes, I learned it over time, but I learned it the hard way. And it came at a huge cost, right? Cost in terms of time, cost in terms of money being burnt, making all those mistakes. In some ways, we were fortunate that we raised a pretty significant Series A for Australian standards. $12+ million. So we could make a few mistakes and still have the money to recover. A lot of companies don't have the luxury. So you really need that day one. You need to have that business side of things sorted out much better. Otherwise, you'll run out of gas in the tank, and then you're dead, right? And that was, I think, maybe part of the answer. I think your question was more broadly around what should be taught. Was that also part of the question? I don't know. I'm not obviously in your faculty, so I can't say what is being taught or what should be taught. But probably, I would guess, I've heard that you probably have more case studies of real world stuff, which, yes, ChatGPT can answer you the questions, but you don't know what are the right questions to ask also, right? You just need to have that experience to know what's going to happen next, what's going to come up, what's going to be a major issue, what's going to be a minor issue I don't need to worry about. Picking your battles is not easy, and ChatGPT can't really help you there. You really need that experience, somebody who's done it before. You need somebody who knows the language. Time. Learning can be done, but it comes at the cost of time, and you don't have the luxury of time in a startup because your cash reserves are limited.
Thank you so much for your time, Vijay, for taking the time to speak with us, sharing so generously your insights with us. Can we please give Vijay a round of applause? Thank you.
I would reciprocate by thanking Barney and really everybody here. I do passionately believe there's a lot of value for engineering to work and understand and work closely with the business side of things. So hopefully this will be the beginning.
Wonderful. And on that note, if you're so inspired by Vijay to want to be part of this journey, please scan this QR code to express interest. This is where you express interest to us that you would like to be informed of potential opportunities for of this nature, like with commercialization or other opportunities coming from the Impact and Partnerships portfolio. So please, this is a opt-in form where basically you say, my name is this, and I'm interested in finding out more. So with that, thank you. We do have afternoon tea. So if you have time, please do
stay for afternoon tea, and hopefully we'll have the opportunity to speak more informally with Vijay as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.